Welcome, everybody, and thank you for joining us on this session, Understanding Deduplication of Bibliographic Records and FRBR, the Functional Requirements for Bibliographic Records. I know we had a tough time finding an appropriate time for everybody, so I appreciate everybody adjusting their schedules. And we have 1 hour. If there's any questions or comments, feel free to send them in the chat. The session is being recorded and will be posted to the YouTube with a link to this presentation as well. In the description of the YouTube video, you will see a link to this presentation. We will also be pointing out some online help along the way, and the vast majority of this session today will be live inside Alma and Primo. We will be referring, however, to this presentation along the way, but we will be doing everything live inside Alma and inside Primo. So first of all, FRBR and the deduplication. Everything, like I stated, can be found online. I'm going to open my browser here just to show something. So for example, if I were to come into Google and do a basic Google search, for example, if I was to say deduplication, FRBR, Ex Libris, Alma, that already is going to bring me understanding the dedupe and FRBR processes in Primo VE, configuring the dedupe and FRBR complete keys in Primo, and the dedupe and FRBR analysis tool. And we'll be looking at all of these, but you can look everything up pretty simply, as is the case with all of our documentation. Let's take a brief look at the beginning of the PowerPoint just to see what we're going to be doing today. So we're going to be talking about the deduplication and the FRBR. The FRBR, the functional requirements for bibliographic records, that is from the IFLA, the International Federation of Library Associations. That also, by the way, if I were to come in here and do a very basic search, IFLA and FRBR, this already started, I believe, in 1997, they started talking about this. Let's take a look. Okay, yeah, 1997, almost 40 years ago. Okay. So the functional requirements for bibliographic records, conceptual models, etc. So if you want to get some background about the FRBR itself, that would be the place to do it. So everything there is online. I'm not going to go into the very in-depth details of what the FRBR does, but we'll, of course, be talking about the deduplication and the FRBR. We'll be looking at it live, like I stated, and we're also going to see how we can just say we don't want to use that, or maybe we want to use the FRBR but not the deduplication, or we want to use the deduplication, not the FRBR. We don't want to use them at all. Or it's also possible to say, as we will soon see, that you can take a group of records and say, on these certain records, we don't want to do anything. So what is our plan for today? Let's take a look at the plan. We're going to take 3 examples and see why are they FRBRized and why are they deduped. 2 of them, why are they FRBRized, and 1 of them, why is the deduped. So we're going to see in action what happens. Then we're going to see why were they FRBRized and why were they deduped. So first, we're going to look at the examples. We're going to go into Alma, then we're going to go into Primo. Then we're going to see behind the scenes what happened to the fields of those records when they got FRBRized and deduped. Then we're going to see based on the record and the mapping that we're looking at here, we'll see why were they FRBRized, why were they deduped. Then we're going to be looking at the disabling of the FRBR entirely, of the dedupe and the FRBR, then disabling just on certain records, and then we'll look at some other configurations. And we have 1 hour, so we're going to move appropriately. So let's start already with our first example. Rather than going in, you all will have access to this presentation, so I'm not going to go in here and start explaining what these dedupe and what this FRBR is behind the scenes. We're going to go in and look at examples, and that will be the best way for us to be able to see our examples. So let's start with this one here. Lean In, Women Work in the Will to Lead, Sheryl Sandberg. So we have 2 records here. Let's look at them in Alma first. Lean In, Woman Work, Will to Lead, Sheryl Sandberg. So let's go into Alma, and I'll do an all title search. Let's say, oh, I've already got it right here even. So let's take these two records and let's put them side by side. We want this one here. This is a different one that we're not dealing with right now. This one also we're not dealing with right now. And this one here. So two of them with titles, Lean In, Woman Work, Will to Lead. I'm going to push those both to the metadata editor just because it's easiest inside the metadata editor to start looking at records side by side. So let's now look at these side by side here, and we'll compare them. So here's the first one. Publisher, Alfred A. Knopf. I'll go into the split editor mode, and we'll go here. Now, what I'm doing now is not necessary to use or understand the FRBR. It's simply an easier way for us to compare the records. And I've got a description here of the comparison. So what do we have? Same author, same title, different publisher, same year, different format. One's a hardcover book, one's an audio book. And then once we have a hardcover book and an audio book, of course, there's going to be a lot of other differences, such as the audio book isn't going to have pages, it will have duration. And the hardcover is not going to have 6 hours, 27 minutes as a duration. It will have pages, for example. They're both English, different ISBNs, of course. And if we come into Alma and we look at these records, we see that. So we've got the same author and title, and I'm pointing that out several times, not because I just forgot that I said it. It's because that we're going to see is a key component, the author and title, in determining the FRBR keys, which determines it's the same record. So these are our two records. And if we come now into Primo and we do that same search, now I'm using Primo VE NDE, and what I'm doing here applies also for Primo V, which is not NDE, and I'm going to sign in, and it also works if we're not signed in. Let's sign in as Caroline DeVoe. And we are in. So Caroline comes along, and she searches Lean In, Woman Work, the Will to Lead. Sheryl Sandberg comes along and finds this first record. And it says, other versions available to full versions list right here. This is also one that's FRBRized, but we'll save that for another day. So here, this is our link to see all of them. Now, note a couple of things here. It's showing us one of the records, let's say the first record, because each of these records has different inventory. And I did that on purpose because I want to point out something about the inventory. If I come along here and we do our search again, you'll see this one here. Let's get it in the like this. So this one here has main library media location. That's the audio is in the location media. And the other one is in the location general. So they're in different locations. Back to Primo, and we only see one location. We see the open stacks, the general. So we're not seeing here both locations. That's going to be different when we get to the dedupe. And then if we click here, other versions available, we see both of the records. We see the audio book and we see the physical book. So that's our first example. We're going to examine this more in depth soon, but right now we're just setting the stage of what's going on. So that's the first example. Let's take a look at another example of a FRBR. So let's move down to slide 18. And here we have another one, Outrageous Acts and Everyday Rebellions by Gloria Steinem. And here also same title, same author, different publisher, different date, different format, hardcover and a paperback, of course, different ISBNs, different pages, etc. This is a second edition. So let's take a look here. If we come into Alma and we do that search, so we've got this one here, we've got this one here. These are other ones because I searched keywords, which happen to also have those words. And let's put those in the metadata editor as well so we can take a look, show the metadata editor. And here we've got, let's get rid of this one. And outrageous acts at everyday rebellion. So here's one from 1984. We go to the split editor mode, focus on the other side, and now we've got one from 1995. So these are the two different works: London, Jonathan Cape, 1984, New York, Holt, 1995. Gloria Steinem is the author. Outrageous Acts, Everyday Rebellions, with a statement of responsibility. Gloria Steinem in the 245. Other fields we saw are different. By the way, we also see here that the content, media, and carrier types are also the same. The 336, 337, 338 carrier media type, content, media, and carrier types. These are the same here and here. A couple of other things are the same. We're going to point out, we're going to see why I'm pointing that out right now later on. And they get FRBRized as well. So if I come into Primo here and I search for Outrageous Acts, Everyday Rebellions, let's put in here a Gloria. And here they are. So we're seeing Education Library General in the call number. I click here, and now I see both of them. And again, I see here that they're actually in different locations. This is in the main library OpenStax. This is in the Education General. But in our results, we see one location. We see the location of the first one. And then we click here, we see all of it. Also, by the way, if I click on here, I see the Education Library with a link that there are more, but I'm still only seeing one of the locations here. Okay, so that's our second example of a FRBR. Let's take a look at one example of a dedupe, and then we'll start to examine why they were FRBRized, why they were deduped. Now, the FRBR and the dedupe differ. We're going to dedupe now. The FRBR and the dedupe differ because the dedupe means the record is exactly the same. When we looked at our records here, it's the same author, same title, or what would be called in official language, it's the same work. A couple of the terminologies here kind of overlap. Those of you who may have been already getting involved in the BibFrame, where we have works and instances, a bit of the terminology is the same here. Here we've got something called WEMI, with a work, expression, manifestation, and an item. That's in the FRBR, where in the BibFrame we've got the work, the instance, and an item. A little different. Both cases have a work. What is a work? An intellectual entity. We'll save that for another time. But suffice to say, the records we've looked at now, which I've got here on the screen, are not identical, but the FRBR has determined that it's the same work. Now let's do the dedupe. So let's go to slide 25 and do the dedupe. So here I've got a title, City Woman, Contemporary Taiwan Woman Writers. Everything is the same, except, of course, the 001 and the 005. 001 in Alma, we put the MMS ID. 005 is the date the record was put in the system, or updated. So let's go take a look here. So if we come into Alma now, first I'm going to release these FRBR examples. And let's take a look now at title that. Okay, and let's put both of these also in the metadata editor, simply so we can see them side by side a little more easily. We'll take that one, we'll go to split editor mode, and we'll come here. So what do we got here? Same author, same title, and even same LDR. You can see this one here's got a M there for monograph. I'm going to say Control F here. So we've got an M for monograph in the LDR position 7 here, here, here. Sorry, I'm right there. Same thing here. We've got an M in position 7. meaning it's a monograph. Our 008 is also the same here. You can see my year 2001 here, and my year 2001 here. You can see my language here. You can see my, everything's the same. The entire record is the same. Subjects, added entry, everything. Except, of course, like we said, the 001 and the 005. Now, if we come along into Primo and we see these, one other point here. These also, let me do a search one more time. These also have different locations. This is in the main library general. This is in the education library, education teaching center. Now we do the search here. Here it is. Notice this is a dedupe. I'm getting one result instead of two. And I'm getting both locations. It's telling me it's at the Education Library, Education Teaching Center, and other locations. And when I come in here, I see both locations. That's not like the FRBR. The FRBRized, or put them together for the brief results, but not for the full view. For the full view, I didn't see both locations. Here I do see both locations. So now we've seen examples of FRBR and dedupe. We haven't talked about how that happened. Let's briefly talk about why this is useful. If somebody comes along and they search for city woman, contemporary Taiwan woman writers, so we can already see here it's useful that it's deduped. The user doesn't need to see this twice if it's the same record. It's easier for the user to see it once instead of scrolling through two different records with the two different locations. Perhaps the user wants to make an item request, for example. All can all be done in one place. Same thing when we were doing our searches for those records which were FRBRized. Let's take the outrageous acts and everyday rebellions with Gloria. So here also, instead of seeing this twice on the screen and needing to scroll more, they're all together, but the user sees, if he or she wants, that they can come in here and see them both. So it's optional that they go and they see them both separately. But we're assuming it's enough for a typical end user searching discovery that they see one result. And if they want to see both separately, they've got that link to see both separately. So it's an ease of use for the end user. If that's how we say, why is this going to be useful? And that's also explained in the PowerPoint. You're welcome to come through here and see. The record, why are these deduped? Why is this? What is the benefit? It's an improvement on the searching. This patron searching this title doesn't need to see both the records separately. It's enough for the user to see them together, showing the inventory of each. And even when we were looking here in the FRBRized one, again, even though he or she sees the location of one record until doing the option of seeing all records, it's still useful. Patron sees both editions grouped together, and then for whatever they need, they can either go into both or look at just one. Main thing is a reduced redundancy. The author and the title are the same. They don't want to see it twice. And if they do, we're going to see in any case how we can turn this off. Okay, so now that we've seen the examples, let's see how did this happen. So this happens because there's a mapping of FRBR keys and dedupe keys. And let's see what's going on here. So I'm going to go into Google just as an example. And let's say I say here that I'm interested in knowing the mapping of the dedupe keys. Mapping, I'll say dedupe, FRBR, keys, Alma, Ex Libris. I'll even throw in a Primo in there. Okay, understanding the dedupe, configuring, and we want to go to the mapping of the dedupe keys. So let's start here at the understanding of the dedupe in the FRBR process, which explains in depth everything that I'm going to be showing here. And let's come here. We've got mapping the dedupe keys, mapping the FRBR keys. So let's start actually at how the dedupe and FRBR work together. And there's a statement here I want to point out. The dedupe and the FRBR keys, I'll make this a little larger. The dedupe and the FRBR matching process are very similar. And we're going to see that they're very similar, but the content of the keys is different. So what does the system do? The system first looks for duplicate records. Then it looks for FRBR groups. We'll talk about what those groups are. Then it says, because the dedupe ID is used as a key for the FRBR process, a record that is deduped is also FRBRized. Okay, so every deduped record is also FRBRized. In other words, if the records are identical, they're also similar. That's a logical case. Now, the opposite is not true. If a record is FRBRized, that does not mean it's deduped. Or in logical terms, or natural language, let's call it, as they do nowadays, if two records are similar, it doesn't mean they're identical. They might be, but they're not necessarily. So two identical records are also FRBRized. They're also similar. But two FRBRized records may be deduped, but not necessarily. A record that is deduped is also FRBRized. Okay, now we've got these keys. So let's talk about the keys here. First of all, I'm going to make this back to the way it was. And how does all this work? So let's go to the calculating the keys. Oh, here we are, calculating the keys. So there's various keys here that are used in order to make what's called a complete key, to say, yes, those records are deduped, or yes, those records are FRBRized. And let's take a look here. Let's start by focusing on the FRBR part. So for example, there's a key called K1 that looks at the author, and for the different types of mark, looks at the different ones. If it was a Unimark, then we'd look at the 7XXs. If it's a Dublin core, we'd look at the DC creator, DC terms creator, etc. For a bib frame record, we'd look at the primary contribution field. And here, we're going to look at the 100s. And if there's no 100s, we'll look at the 700s. That's for the author. For the title, we build something K3. And in the case of a Mark 21 record, we look at the 245 A, B, E, F, G, N, and P. We can also see this inside Alma. And let's go look at this inside Alma. So inside Alma, let's go to the configuration and to the discovery and to the section other. So we've got a couple of things here on the dedupe FRBR. Suppress, which we'll talk about later, time permitting. I see we're already well over 20 minutes into the session. A test utility, which we'll look at. And then we've got here the dedupe FRBR complete key combination. So I'm going to go to the FRBR section. Now here it says FRBR K1 plus FRBR K3, author plus title. And if we want to know, well, what is the K1, what is the K3? Well, then we can come back here where we were, and I know the K1 author is this, the K3 title is this, and they're used together here, so it makes a key, which is a combination of the author and title, and it's the complete key is the K1 and the K3, and we know that that's a combination of the 100 whatever subfields and 245 whatever subfields, and if those aren't present, then it's looking at other fields, although we know the 245 is mandatory. So that's the basics, but we're going to see a real example. In fact, let's already jump right in and see a real example here. So if I take my two examples that we used for the first example of the FRBR, This one here, lean in, woman work, will to lead. We've got these two MMS IDs. These are the ones, just to remind ourselves, we went in and we searched here for lean in, woman work, will to lead by Sheryl Sandberg. And when we did that in Primo, let's even do an advanced search because I want to get exact now for our purposes here. So we're going to say lean in, woman work, will to lead, and I want where the creator contains Sandberg. Okay, so here it is. These two records got FRBRized. Now let's go use the facility. Is it the facility? Utility, excuse me, not facility, utility. It's also a facility, actually, a type of facility. In any case, so now let's use this test utility, and this is going to show us what happens. So first of all, if I take only one of these records, let's even come in here and do a little test. If I come in here, and let's take this record, let's get the MMS ID of this record. I'm not going to use the PowerPoint to get it. I'm going to trust that everything works here. I'm going to say display source record just so I can get the MMS ID. I could, of course, also display the MMS ID there. So if I take this record now, and I say, for the purposes of FRBR, show me the matching records. So now it's going to those FRBR keys that we just looked at. Inside Alma, we looked. You recall we went here to the dedupe FRBR complete key combination. We saw the author title, and there were other rows there. We saw here what they're doing, that they're looking at these fields and these fields. And now he's coming and he's looking for matching records. So I looked for this one, and it tells me this is a matching record. Let's see if that's really a matching record. If I come back here and I do a library search for that, it should also be lean in, woman work, will to lead, and sure enough it is. So everything is good here also. We know there's two of them here. I could also go more in depth. By the way, you see here, very nice. It's showing us the K1, K3 that we saw before, which is the author title, and it's bringing us those fields and subfields. This Sheryl Sandberg, lean in, woman work, will to lead, it built by taking the fields here, which is the 245 A, B, E, F, G, N, and P, and then the 100 A, B, C, and Q. And it built these two here, and it converts it, by the way, to a numerical value, because it's easier inside Alma, inside computers, let's say, to compare numerical strings as opposed to textual strings. It's also more exact, especially when you start getting into the umlauts, etc., accents, etc. And then it says, if those are the same, then the records are the same. If the keys are the same, then the records are the same. So those are those two records. I could also compare here. So let's compare the two records here. I'm going to come back. So we're going to compare here and here. And let's see what it does. So again, we see what it matched on, the K1, the K3, which we know is the author and the title. It shows us what that text of the author title is. The key which matches 959, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If I were to do a search on that, we'll see it's the same there and there. So both records have that same key. And then it determines they're the same. And then they display in Discovery. I think we'll only show one of those. That's the only one we'll show for the FRBR. We showed two examples when we searched in Primo, but for our using the test utility here and seeing how they match, I think it suffices to show one because we want to show a lot of other information as well. Now, how did the dedupe work? Let's leave these here. They're not duplicates. So if I say dedupe and compare, you can see matched. It says no match here. These are not duplicates. They're only FRBRized. I shouldn't say only. They're not deduped, they're FRBRized. And you can see in the matched column, it's all X's. Now let's take a look at the dedupe option. The one that we already saw was deduped. And let's see why was that deduped. So let's go to the example there and see what the story is. So we'll go to slide 59. And you're welcome to look. There's 102 slides here, which is why I'm not showing them all, just the basics of what we want to share. So these are the two records we looked at here. We went to outrageous acts and everyday rebellions, just a brief review. And when we came in here and we searched, we see that there are two of them here. Two of them with different locations. But we saw that everything was exact, except for the 001 and 005. Everything was exactly the same. And when we come in here and search, Gloria. Wait, that's our, hold on a moment. Oh, that's our FRBRized. That's why here it's getting that, because it's FRBRized. We want the dedupe. Sorry about that. So the dedupe. Here's our dedupe options. City woman, this is the dedupe. City woman, contemporary woman, Taiwan woman writers. So here, when we search here, we get 1, but we know it's deduped because when we search in Alma, we get 2. This is the one that everything is the same except for the 001 and the 005. These records became deduped when somebody searched in Primo, and now we want to see why. So let's go to the utility again. And we can actually look here as well first. So now we're talking about the dedupe. This was the FRBR. All these keys start with K. Excuse me. Now we're talking about the dedupe. These keys start with C5. Now there's a lot more here because here we want to check the whole record. Here we got the control number, the LCCN, the ISBN, et cetera, et cetera. Brief title, full title. So let's take a look here. If we compare in the utility, so configuration, discovery, other, dedupe and FRBR Test Utility. Let's look first here at the complete key combinations. So here I got a tab for dedupe. So these should all match. If I have the same ISBN title and date, then I should get, for example, that this is a match. And if I have the same OCLC number, brief title, and year, I should get that this is a match. I might not have an OCLC number in there, but everything that I do have should match because they're identical records. And if I want to know what is it taking for one of these fields, the F1, the F5, the F6, etc., what is it giving me from where is it taking the LCCN, the brief title, the year, etc.? So we can always get that from here. So the LCCN, for example, is coming from the 0010 subfield A in the case of a Mark 21 record. And where is my brief title coming from? The 245 A, B, N, and P. By the way, it's possible to change these. We're not in this 1 hour session. We could do a full series just on the FRBR and dedupe. Maybe one day we'll do a 5-part series just on FRBR and dedupe. But in any case, I could say delete. I don't want that. And then I could say edit and do something here and say, well, I want it, but I don't want it on the F6 and get rid of the F6, which is the year. And then I can also add my own keys, which we're not going to do. But it is possible to do some configurations here. I wouldn't recommend it because there are standards here that we're following. We saw that IFLA has these standards. In the case of dedupe, you're assuming it is really the exact record, and that's what we've got here. And in the case of FRBR, I wouldn't advise making changes, but it is possible. So we wanted to see what is happening. So we're going to go to the utility, not the facility, the utility. Now we're going to go to the dedupe. Let's put in one of the record IDs and let's go get a match. So let's go to the link and let's open it just so I can get the MMS ID, even though I could get it from my PowerPoint. And let's say here, I'm on the dedupe you see here now. I say find matching records. So here's the matching record. It found another matching record. I looked for this one, which is 6441904, etc. And it found this one here, which is 254111, same title, same record. And if I go to the compare records and I'm on the dedupe, let's do that now. So now I'll say I want this one. And I want this one. This time I've got dedupe selected. Last time I had FRBR selected. And we say compare. And here they are. So here's my two records, which were compared. And now in this matched column, previously, if you recall, I had X's when I was doing a test on the FRBRized ones. I had X's because they weren't matched, but here you can see everything is matched. All of these keys are matched. This one here is F1, F7, F6, just as an example. This F1, F7, F6, which says LCCN, full title, pagination. So what did it do when it compared the F1, F7, F6, if I'm interested in knowing? Again, I don't need to do this. We're just going more in depth. So it went to the F1. It compared the 010A, because I'm in a Mark 21, and it took the year from the 008 position 7 to 10, and it took the title from the 245 A, B, N, and P, and that's why it says F1, F7, F6, and said that they're the same in both records, and then displayed them in Primo. Now, I see there's no questions. I'm looking in the chat, and I see there's no questions, so I am going to continue. Now, it may be the case that the institution wants to disable this. They're not interested in using the dedupe, or they're not interested in using the FRBR. Oh, someone just sent in the chat that I said I was going to check the FRBR on the dedupe. Yes. I mentioned before that the dedupe, anything that's deduped is also FRBRized, or if I put that in natural language, anything that it's identical is also similar. But things that are similar are not necessarily identical. So these, let's put this in the FRBR just for the fun. Compare. And they also match. Of course, they match in the FRBRs, but not everything that's FRBRized is also deduped. And that we saw before. Thank you for pointing that out. A person who sent in the chat. So these were deduped. Here I'm doing dedupe compare. They were deduped, but also if I come into the FRBR, they're also FRBRized. This is actually a nice lead-in because we're going to see that I can disable the dedupe and not the FRBR. I can disable the FRBR and not the dedupe, and I can also disable both. Now, if I were to take one of the ones that were FRBRized, let's take an example of something that was FRBRized. Okay, this was a FRBRized one. So if we take this and this one, so these match, but if I do a dedupe on them, now I switch here, they don't match. So we saw that the one that was deduped is also FRBRized, that the one that is FRBRized is not necessarily also deduped. Now, why are these deduped? Why is it appearing here when I search city woman? Let's keep our two examples here, and I want to take a picture before and after. Let's open a Word document here. So we see right now that if I search for that, they are deduped. They are deduped, I get one result right here. In fact, let me do it this way. Advanced search, just so I get only that, clarity purposes. Wonderful. So those are deduped. This is like we'll call this the before. And let's take an example of a FRBR. In here, let's take this one here, outrageous acts and everyday rebellions. Okay, so if I come along here now, and we'll say creator contains Gloria, they're FRBRized. Okay. So now, I see we got to speed up our things a bit. So now, let's say I don't want the dedupes. I don't want those dedupes to occur. I can change it per view. It's not an institution-wide configuration. It's a configuration per view. So I'm looking at a view right now, which is, I believe this is my Alma NDE view. Let's see here. Yes, so I have a view called EXLDev1inst, which is my institution, Alma underline NDE, because I also have one called Alma, and then when we started showing the NDE, I called it Alma underline NDE. So let's go take a look at that. And again, all of this is in this PowerPoint, which you have access to. I'm simply not going to go through all the details here, but I'm showing now this disablement. This is in a different chat that this came in, this question. So now we're going to disable. Here also I got the before and afters, I see, before and after. So let's go take a look. In fact, I'm going to close the power. Now I'll leave it open. We still want to show something else from there. So if I come into the view, let's say discovery, display configuration, configure views. And I'm in that view, Alma underline NDE, edit. So we're going to go to the brief results. Why are we going to the brief results? Because this, what we're looking at now, is the brief results. And in the brief results, we've got here the enable FRBR, enable dedupe. There's other options here. By the way, we just added this option here. I'm going to save that for another day. Criteria for the dedupe preferred. I had stated that it's only showing one record. When something is deduped, it shows one record and the location for the one record. You can play around with which record is it displaying, and you can make a preferred record. You can do all kinds of cool stuff here. Same thing here with the criteria, but we'll save that for another day. So I'm going to disable the dedupe. So now I disabled the dedupe. Now my dedupe is disabled. I'm going to search for this one here again. By the way, I may as well put here, while I still got that here, here I search for outrageous acts and everyday rebellions. So let's see this. I'm going to do the same search again now that I deactivated the dedupe. I might have to log out, log in, who knows. Usually when I say I might need to log out, log in, we don't need to. But let's take a look. Wonderful. No, it says city woman, da 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 da, other versions available. That means It's FRBRized. Previously, when we did it, here's our picture. It didn't say other versions available because here it's deduping it. And now we disabled the dedupe. We disabled the dedupe here. I unchecked the dedupe here, but I left the FRBR and I pointed out before that if something is deduped, it's also FRBRized, but the opposite is not necessarily true. So now, previously it was deduped, now it's FRBRized. You can see I've got that other versions available. Let's even take a picture there just because it's so nice. Such a nice example. I'm going to say here, this is with dedupe, and this is without dedupe. Now I'm going to go one step further. I'm going to get rid of the FRBR. By the way, these dynamic sections will also get removed because they're not relevant if I'm not FRBRizing. Now I got rid of the FRBR and the dedupe. I do this search. Now I got both of them. Oh, that's nice. A perfect example. So now I'll say here, without dedupe and without FRBR. And now both of them. So when I'm deduping and FRBRizing, it's deduping. Because dedupe, it does the dedupe first, which we saw at the very beginning of today's session, 50 minutes ago. Almost 50 minutes ago, 50. Then when we turned off the dedupe, it got FRBRized. We see the other versions available. Then when we turned off the dedupe and the FRBRized, we get both records. Let's take a look at those that were only FRBRized. First, I want to put back the FRBRization. Now, let me just search this again to make sure she's back in action. Okay, now let's look at the other example here. So here, oops. Now let's take outrageous acts and everyday rebellions. Here it's FRBRized. And we want it with creator Gloria. Okay, so she's FRBRized. Then we come along here, unFRBRize. Search again. Now we get both records. So now we're FRBRizing. So someone asks in the chat that I'm doing it. If I understand your question correctly, I'm going to reword it, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on the rewording. I'm able to turn off the FRBR and the dedupe on the level of the institution. The person's asking, can I do it on the level of the library? Yes, but I'm going to phrase that differently. I can do it on a set of records, and I can make a set of records based on the library. So let's see how that's done. We're not going to actually run it, but I'm going to show how I could run it. Let's say I want to not, first of all, let me finish this one here and just put that full picture in here. Here. So here it's FRBRized. I already did that above. And here, when FRBRization is off. When FRBR not in use. So here I got one of them. Here I got both of them. Okay, now, I could come along and say, any record that meets who knows what criteria. I don't know what kind of criteria. But let's say let's do a physical titles. Permanent physical holdings equals the art library. Okay, so now I'm making a set of everything in the art library. And we're going to finish with this last activity here because we're not going to go over an hour today. We made that clear in our previous webinars. So I'm going to save this as a set. This is going to be titles with inventory in the art library. Now, note, I can make my sets in all different kinds of ways. Theoretically, I could have a title here that has something in the art library and another library, but we'll talk about that in another session. So now I have a set. Now I can come along and run a job, admin, run a job, and there it is. Prevent FRBR and or dedupe in discovery. So I can run a job. Here's my set here. Titles with inventory in the art library. Now I can say, do I want to prevent FRBRization? Yes or no. Or do I want to prevent discovery? The no would be if I already changed it to yes and then I want to put it back to no. That's where I can do it. So I could run this and say, yes, I don't want FRBRization. I want to prevent FRBRization. I want to prevent dedupe on every record in here and then submit. I'm not going to do it now. In any case, we're going to be stopping soon. And then all of those records would no longer be deduped and no longer be FRBRized. Because now I'm not doing on the level of the view, I'm doing it on the level of the sets here. Of course, I could, even if a record is not defined to be prevented for dedupe or FRBR, I would still, of course, as we saw, need to make sure that in that view, I'm enabling the FRBR and the dedupe. So this is how I can do it on a set of records. Okay, did that answer your question, person who asked about the records on dedupe and the levels of the library? Yes, okay. So that's how we can do it on criteria of the records. We can make a set and run this job. And we saw that we can do it on the level of the view by inside the view, enabling or disabling the FRBR and the dedupe. That's in the brief results. And we have it enabled and enabled. Okay. I'm going to end here. I will point out, though, there's a few more things here about configuring. I showed that it can be configured. I simply didn't actually do the configuring. After changing the configuration, it might be necessary to recalculate. So everyone can look at these also. These are links to the online help about it. But we saw the main part. How does the dedupe work? How does the FRBRization work? How can I turn it on? How can I turn it off? How can I do it on the level of a view? How can I do it on the level of a specific group of records? So thanks everyone for joining, and I will see you in the next sessions, hopefully. And this recording will be on YouTube sometime either this evening or tomorrow. And we look forward to seeing you soon. Have a nice day, everybody. Bye-bye.